What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video we're going to be taking a look at a very budget oriented PC that I pieced together myself with some used parts that I found while hunting around in my local area. And if you haven't seen that video that I did on this PC already, click up here or over here. Don't know, it'll be up here, yeah, it'll be up here. Now, how budget is this PC, you ask? Well, to just come right out with it basically, this PC only cost me $115 US to piece it together. Now, I know already what you're thinking basically. You're thinking, Ricky, there's no way that a PC that cheap could even remotely play any games nowadays, right? And all right, I see your point there, and I totally agree with you already. But I feel like we need to investigate further for science. URCDKEY has discounted codes for games and software that are a fraction of what you would pay if you purchased them from a retail store. More specifically, they have great prices on their Microsoft Office 2016 bundle that comes with a Windows 10 license as well. If that's not enough, you can also use my promo code RAV20 to receive 20% off the already discounted price. Just type in your product you're looking for, add it to the cart, view your cart, head to the checkout, type in my promo code, once again, RAV20, and see the sweet savings appear. Check the links in the video description to learn more. Now let me first show you what hardware we're working with. The main config of the PC is originally a Dell Vostro desktop, originally released back in 2013. Yes, I know, that already sounds terrible. Despite that, we actually have some pretty good hardware to work with here. The CPU is an Intel Core i5-3450 running at 3.1 GHz with a 3.5 GHz max turbo. The motherboard is a Dell 877 Express LGA 1155 board with 8 GB of 1600 MHz DDR3 RAM. And as for graphics, we're running with an AMD Radeon HD 6570 1 GB card to hopefully give us the ability to remotely play some of the games that we're going to be testing today. Now, before we get into some benchmark tests, I'm actually pretty curious about these parts because I've never used them, and I honestly bought them on a whim because they were so cheap. So we're gonna go ahead and go to a site called userbenchmark.com that I use to compare PC parts most of the time and see what they have to say about these components. Starting with our CPU, we can see that the Ivy Bridge i5 we're using is not really that bad by any means. You can see I've compared it here with a very popular 4-core, 4-thread CPU of the current generation, the Ryzen 3 3200G, and to my surprise, and maybe yours as well, our i5 isn't much worse than a 6-year newer chip. That's pretty cool. The two main things that we can focus on here for this comparison are the gaming and desktop numbers this site gives us, and as you can see, they're not nearly as bad as you'd expect. Moving on to our GPU, well, it's bad. Comparing it to just a 3-year newer RX 560, you can see that the difference is pretty insane. With our HD 6570 1 GB looking pretty terrible in just about every category we have here. This really goes to show you how much faster GPU technology was innovated over the last few years than CPU technology. Thanks, Intel. But okay, with that bombshell in your mind now, let's start testing this thing out. First thing I did was fire up some 3D Mark and ran it through our Skydiver Benchmark that I usually use for systems like this. Our system produced a score of 2737, which in short is really bad. For a reference point, I used my Ryzen 3 2200G system from back in 2018 using just the integrated Vega 8 graphics it comes with. Just the integrated graphics, you guys. And it was able to produce a score of 10,544. Ouch. So things aren't looking great for our super budget system right now. But fear not, this is just a synthetic benchmark and real gameplay varies drastically. So to start these tests, I really wanted to try to stick with some games that were released around the same time frame as this PC and GPU that we threw in it to even give it a chance of being able to play it. Some that are obviously been updated over the past few years, but just so you guys are aware, we're going to be targeting 30 FPS as our playable
playable mark because of how low of expectations I have for this PC. I'm sure you guys are feeling the same way. And I'm also just using a 60 Hz monitor to test these because honestly, if any game gets above 60 FPS, I'll be pretty shocked. So we'll start off with a game that can basically be run off a potato, and that game is Dota 2.
And we got this game started with just a mixture of medium to high settings, and that is what the game automatically set itself as. Now this game's system requirements actually kind of lined up with what we have going on here in our gaming PC, so I kind of had a bit of high hope for this one, and turns out I was kind of right, seeing as we were getting an average of about 53 FPS throughout our little play run through here we got. And it was kind of fluctuating, you know, around our minimums are 31 and our max is 69. But we basically saw around 50 to about 55 FPS the entire time, and it was actually an enjoyable experience. I actually have never played Dota before, so this was my first time getting a chance to mess with it, and it was actually a really fun experience, and I didn't really notice any stutters or anything weird like that, so props to the budget PC for getting this one done.
Next, we have Diablo 3. With this game coming out around the same time frame as this PC and graphics card when they both came out, I figured this would be a great addition to our tests.
Now, since we're definitely not near the required specs for Diablo 3, what it was even back then, we definitely had to lower the settings on this one a little bit, and we had to just pretty much put everything on low to get this game to even be at what I would consider even a playable setting. Pretty much what you're seeing right now is we're kind of getting an average of 25 FPS with the minimums being 22 and the max being about 30, something like that. Just depends on where you are and what's happening on the screen. But with a lot of things happening on the screen, we were at some points averaging about 30 FPS, something like that. But what I would say, you know, as we said in the beginning, it is sort of a playable experience for a PC like this, but if you really want a more enjoyable experience, you definitely need to upgrade the graphics card for this game.
Moving on, we have WoW Classic. Again, this game can also be basically run on a potato. And seeing as this game was originally released in 2004, I got pretty high expectations for this.
So spoiler alert, and really no surprise to me, World of Warcraft Classic was pretty much the only game that we tested that was able to hit that 60 FPS number. And obviously this is due to the game being how old it is, and the settings that were used back in like 2004, 2005. Pretty much being rendered on screen as what you see right now. And it was just funny to me to test this because I've played WoW for years and I just never knew to like the extent of what kind of like potato PC can play this game until I just tried it. So I'm really glad I did, because playing this game for years, it's kind of funny to see like what PCs maybe some other players are playing on, and maybe that's why they were struggling in dungeons so much. So that answers that question for me.
Now we're going to go ahead and move on to some games that were a bit more graphics intensive and have a bit more updates to them these days. So we're going to go ahead and start this off with CSGO.
Now, to get this game to be where I consider playable, I had to basically turn off all anti-aliasing and all that kind of stuff, and then basically drop the settings to medium. Now, I've played CSGO quite a bit, but this is definitely the first time I've ever experienced this game with a monitor that is below 144 Hz. So I usually never play this game without a high refresh rate monitor and a PC that can drive it, you know, above that 144 Hz mark, because I'm very used to playing this game at a very fast twitch pace, so you can make sure you hit every shot that you're looking for, and basically if you don't hit your shot at that point, it's on you. So this, giving how much like motion blur it has because of the screen tearing and not being able to, you know, get up to even 60 frames per second. As you can see, we're averaging about 50, 55, and the minimums go down to about 35. So you can see that we're fluctuating quite a bit there, and it just is a completely different experience for you guys out there who have never tried a high refresh rate monitor. Games like this are completely different when you finally get up to a high refresh rate monitor and have a PC that can drive it. It's just way more of an enjoyable experience, and you can really focus on really getting better. But in this instance, you're basically focusing on just trying to fight the PC to actually be able to see what you're trying to hit. So definitely a different experience for me, but really cool that this PC can still play the game.
Next is BioShock Infinite. This game originally released back in 2013, but this PC definitely does not meet the minimum requirements, so I really don't have high hopes for this.
Now, this game definitely wasn't any slouch even back then when it first came out in 2013, and as you can see, I'm super mean, and I had to test the very first scene where there's a bunch of weather effects to really push this PC, and to even give it some kind of chance, we lowered the settings to very low, the lowest this game can actually go to, and pretty much what we'd expect. This PC is just getting trounced by this game, with our max really only hitting about 30 FPS. our average kind of sitting around between 20 to 30, sometimes dropping even lower. And as you can see, when a reflection like this comes up, our minimums get really low into the 15s. So really kind of playable. If we consider, like we said in the beginning, 30 to be our playable experience, and this is okay, but it doesn't stay at it consistently. So it's really not a win. This game definitely isn't where we want it to be. So to be able to play this game, you know, consistently and with an enjoyable experience, this computer could definitely use a graphics card upgrade.
And finally, we have Battlefield 4, probably my favorite game that we've tested on this and one of my favorite games from back then. Again, I really don't expect us to do well here.
And unfortunately, my suspicions were correct. At the lowest settings in this game, this PC is struggling to even hit 30 frames per second at max. So as you can see, our average, we're hovering around somewhere between 20 and 25, which is definitely not what I would consider a playable experience by any means. A game like this, you would probably want it to run way higher than that, especially in nowadays standards. So this PC was definitely struggling with this one, and honestly, right now we're only in the little training mode. There's no other players on the screen, and you know, no crazy stuff happening other than, of course, that explosion I just made right there to show you guys. But definitely not the playable experience that I would suggest for anybody. So this game would definitely benefit from a graphics card upgrade.
All right, so what have we learned today? Well, we've learned that with the right games and the right settings, a PC this cheap, remember, $115, you guys, can actually still play some games. Yes, it can, as you guys saw. Granted, certain titles will absolutely crush our GPU here, but it was pretty surprising to me that some of our tests actually gave us a playable experience. Very surprising and definitely not what I expected from this little machine. Now, if you guys enjoyed this little science experiment that I did, please remember to give the video a like so I know you guys enjoy this kind of content. I love seeing that. And if you have any comments, questions, or concerns about anything in the video that I did, feel free to comment down below. And lastly, if you really enjoy my content and you want to see more, because I will be doing more videos on this PC especially, doing a little bit more upgrades, spoiler alert, go ahead and consider getting subscribed and turning on those notifications so you can be notified on when my next video or stream will be posted. And as always, I'll see you in the next one, guys. Later.